Huzzah! I'm Spider, and welcome to the Jacks Rangers, a New England Free Jacks podcast. And here is your host, Phil Harris. Yeah!
Huzzah, Rangers. This is Phil Harris again here at the Jacks Rangers show. This is episode 14, silly season. This is the Outriders segment, of course. We've got Dave, as always, but we brought in Chris as well, a previous Outrider in the season. So let's get started, boys. How y'all doing?
Doing very well. How about you, Phil?
Not bad, not bad. How about you, Chris?
I am living. I'm home from Pennsylvania. It feels good to be back in the Shire.
Nice shirt, man.
I know, I love it. AC Slater, triple threat.
Absolutely. Okay. So just wanted to summarize the season in basically 2 sentences here. The New England Free Jacks finished the season with a record of 10 wins and 6 losses. 6 losses, which was good enough for 4th out of 6th in the Eastern Conference with 48 total points. So first question here, and we'll do like a round robin here. What was the main positive and negative for this first full season with the Jacks? And my cat just jumped up into my lap. So I'll go first if you don't mind. I think Morty wants to speak here, but yeah, I don't think she knows much about rugby. So the first positive here that I wanted to mention is home wins. Almost undefeated at home. Fort Union Point and Fort Quincy are truly a fortress, and we want to make sure that Fort Quincy stays that way. Biggest negative in my eyes is the away losses. Our away record was woeful, and that's why we didn't get into the playoffs ultimately. I mean, obviously we lost at home to NOLA, and that was kind of like the nail in the coffin. But if you look back in the season, those away losses toward the beginning of the season really sealed our fate with regards to the other teams were just good enough to kind of put some distance between us and them, with us losing some of those games at the beginning of the season. So we have to find a way in the next season to win more games on the road. Absolutely crucial. But I'll throw it to Dave here with your positive and negative.
Yeah, I hit pretty close to the same mark as you. The way I frame that positive is just the team not giving up. They fought every second of every match, and especially at home. And I think that was a reflection, and some of the guys, Mags and Ryan Martin, have talked about, they looked at what Boston expects out of a sport team, and they wanted to deliver that. And the thing they zoned in on was toughness, and I think they hit it in spades, and that was a big positive. It was intentional. They made a point of doing it, and they did a great job. So I think that is the best thing about this past season, the grit. The low point for me was the loss in DC. It was one of those road losses that you mentioned that really ended up being very impactful. The NOLA loss hurt, but you're going to get bad calls. That's just a thing that's outside of your control. The DC match, they looked a little bit just not sure, not concrete on their game plan. A lot of people weren't executing very well. And to me, it was kind of the low point of the season performance-wise for the team. So I picked that as the low. And then we saw the rebound in that home stretch.
All right, Chris, what you got for us?
My positive was I thought the team was very dangerous all year. Even in some of the losses, the road losses where we struggled, to kind of piggyback on that, they still had flashes of brilliance in those games, a lot of fun tries. And so I just thought that they were really fun to watch through and through, whether they were winning or losing. And it was obviously better for us when they were winning. And then the negatives, just those games that got away, like we were talking about, those early season games where they lost on the road. It's tough. They pretty much started completely on the road. The first home game last week of March or first week of April. Can't remember. But that's a long time to go on the road, and it seemed like the team played into their own, found better combinations, stuff like that. And it just took them a while to play into it, and then they went 50-50 ball, and then you get that 1-point loss like Dave had talked about, where you just can't really control a bad call, and then it ends up having a greater impact maybe than it should have. But you could still control your own destiny. But again, they went 50-50 in the East, because I count the 2 wins against Toronto to negate the 2 losses to NOLA, and then they played 50-50 with everybody else. And so tough to make the playoffs with 50-50, but man, after that last match, I think that the playoffs should be expanded, add another team. So
Maybe if we expand the teams, that might be a situation for the future, like a wild card. That would be great.
Yeah.
Um,
Play-in match between the two,
that would be cool.
conferences, top teams. I don't know. Something fun. I like the weird stuff.
I got a message from Ted, our other guest outrider. It doesn't look like he's gonna be able to make it, so hopefully Ted can watch this. We miss you, Ted. Where do we need depth on this team? This is I put it as position specific because you can just say forwards or backs, but I really want to get more into the detail of it. So I wrote down John Poland, specifically the scrum half position, but I'm going to change my pick. I wrote all this down, but I'm just going to throw that out the window. I think most importantly, we need an 8-man because with Conradi departing, I know that we can put people in there that can play that position, but we need somebody that match. I don't think we're going to match the performance of Conradi, but we need somebody that's really up there. So that's a position of where we need to strengthen, in my opinion. What do you guys think? Chris, we'll go to you first.
Yeah, so I think that I'm a subscriber that you got to play strong right up the middle of the field. So 2 to 9 to 10 to 15. But specifically, I think that we need depth at 10 and 15. I know that we had a specialist 10 with Harrison Boyle, and then it switched over to Waka, and he played outstanding, and they kept that there. But there was a lot of shuffling at fullback. And just when you have that inconsistency right up the middle of the field, I thought we showed great flexibility, and you could call that depth, but I would like to see more specialists there, because imagine if we had that really strong 15. And Dougie Fife was outstanding all over the pitch, but I liked him far better in the centers. I thought he was more effective at outside center for the team than he was at 15. And we just kind of put him at 15 because we don't have a good 15 because we moved to 10. So I guess I'm cheesing out and saying backs, but specifically 10 and 15 is where I would say we need more people.
I agree. Dave, what about you?
I think it's hard to say. I think it's really hard to say. I think you both have really good points. We definitely needed backline depth through the season, and but I think that was maybe a little bit an artifact of situations with some of the players from the Jackals draft, and just the various complications, because we saw a lot of talented backline players coming in like the last third of the season, right? So I think the team was trying to address that specifically. So to me, where you need depth next is probably the front row, but we've already got a few people who are what I would say are development players, right? Spence Kruger and Quentin Newcomer are apprenticing sort of under Seth and Eric. And at hooker, we're in a pretty good position with Peter Janssen and then Kotsia covering. Mm-hmm. So what I think the most correct answer is probably Phil's 8-man pick. But what I said I would like to see is maybe draft another young jumping threat of a lock, a line-out player, somebody who's really gonna dial that in, and apprentice a little bit under Josh Larson, who I think he's probably gonna be around next year. I think we can expect, but beyond that, who knows? And kind of getting the next class of jumping locks ready, while you still have him as a mentor player around.
And just real quick, the reason I selected scrum half is, John Poland is excellent, and we assume that he will be the starter next year. But beyond that, it gets a little frightening. I mean, I don't want to disrespect Ollie or the rest of those guys, but I mean, you really need a solid backup that can consistently come in, each game after, let's say, 65 minutes or something like that, and do a good enough job to where you don't even notice that John Poland is missing.
Yeah, we were fortunate to not have to have that happen to us. I agree, Phil. We were really lucky that we weren't put in a situation where we were forced into that. John Poland, Iron Man.
Yeah.
Sean Jacobian and Tom Bersati, I think, were juggling some injuries over the course of the season. Right. I think both of them were out at different times, and that is really gonna, when your two backup scrum halves who normally would be kind of battling it out for that last 20 minutes position are getting hurt, you don't really have a choice. It's not a battle anymore. It's whoever's healthy.
Right.
And if you have one already out, it's tough to, bring in Jacobian or Brassati, which they did a little bit. Brassati in particular got some like 10-15 minute books toward the end of the season. But yeah, we kind of walked the tightrope on that one, and we were lucky that a player as skilled as JP was able to put in as many minutes as he did.
Yes, sir. Okay, so as a fan, guys, what is your moment of the season? What I have here is it has to be that final try scored by Samu Baudre to put an exclamation point on the win against the Dirt Peckers of New Jersey. The battle-hardened crowd that saw that game walked down to the edge of the stands for the last, let's say, 10 minutes or so. So we were extremely loud. I'm sure the players could feel our intensity there. The people that stayed there were like the real hardcore Ranger type folks that didn't care about the weather. They were just there to have a good time and really cheer on our Free Jacks. So what happened was when that try was scored, Ross Perlon, Marcelo, and myself, which are Rangers through and through, embraced and jumped up and down in a circle. So that's one of my favorite sporting moments of all time. Just that memory. I don't think I'll ever forget that. And I've been to a lot of sporting events in my time. It just felt so to win against the Dirt Peckers at home in those conditions. It really felt like there was a galvanizing moment between the fan base, and that try just sent it over the top. So I'll go to you, Dave. What do you got?
Yeah, that was a great moment. I almost picked that match because it was pretty special and a lot of fun. But I went with the first home match against Utah. I got there really early, and I just got in as soon as I could and spent a lot of time just kind of walking around the grounds and taking it all in. I was super excited. I remember bumping into Mags. I had the Huzzah sign, and he was actually like the first autograph I got because I saw him and I was like, "Oh, hey, Mags, like, can you sign this?" And he's like, "Yeah, absolutely." I mean, you know what he's like. He's such a fun guy. He loved it. He's like, "Yeah, great to have you. Thanks for coming." Thanked me for being there. He had no idea who I was. And it was just so cool. It was something that I'd been looking forward to for years and years. So for me, that Utah match, and then they delivered a really great, 1-point win for the home crowd that really set the tone for the rest of the season.
Chris, what you got?
I really liked the first match against Toronto at home. I think it was a key point in the season for both teams. I think we were pretty much both playing 500 ball at that point, and Toronto was an early dark horse for the East. I think that they probably had the most unfulfilled potential of the season, the biggest bummer. And plus, I mean, tough go having to play down there in Atlanta away from home. But I don't know, I just thought it was a very exciting end of the match. I thought it was another one of those cold, rainy, tough matches. And that kind of, we were 3-0 at home, and then there was that spark, and it was like, and that's when the Fort Union Point started. I can't remember exactly. I think it was at that show. Guys, that's when it was like maybe dubbed Fort Union Point. Maybe it was the one before that. I'm not sure, but that's what got me really excited. It was my first game in person, so kind of going along the route to Dave. Like for me personally, that was like that match. I had a lot of fun at that match.
Yeah, for sure. That was a great time. All right, so Dave and I picked some dream kit sponsors on. So we picked this in the last episode. We posted them on social media to rave reviews. I'm going to ask Chris. I'm also going to get with Ted later on and figure out what is his dream kit sponsor, and I will make these up and post them online. But Chris, for a New England company that would be perfect on the kit, just right there in front, what do you say?
Got to go with Sam Adams.
Yeah.
I think it's so like American rugby too. Like how many I just think of all of the Wolfhounds had Tullamore Dew for a long time. Mystic River was I think it's Coors Light now, but it used to be Miller Lite. Just having some sort of like beer and or whiskey on the front of your kit is like very New England. And then who better if we're gonna have a beer than Sam Adams? People don't want to see Budweiser or Miller Lite out there. It doesn't. I mean, they probably pay the big bucks for the Free Jacks to get on there, more money than, say, Sam Adams. But Sam Adams is a revolutionary Free Jacks. It just rolls. I think it fits. I think they need to talk to him. Get on the phone, Mags. Get him on the line. Get him on the kit. I like, with no disrespect I can't even remember. See, that's the thing. I don't even know who the actual sponsor is right now.
Alloy Therapeutics, I believe, is the main.
Yeah, so no disrespect to Alloy Therapeutics, but Let's
So
go, Sam Adams.
what's interesting about that is that's also the owner's other company. He's a biotech guy. So it's just like, I wonder if they were trying to get a kit sponsor and it didn't work. So they went to Eric and with their hands held out, like, please help us. So yeah, I mean, yeah, I want to see some really cool companies eventually down the road, and that's going to bring in more revenue, right? So yeah, I think Sam Adams is the perfect idea. I mean, it's up there with Dunkin' Donuts and Boston Dynamics is a great idea too, with the robots and stuff like that. But yeah, Sam Adams is great. I actually heard recently that they're going to partner up with PepsiCo to make alcoholic Mountain Dew. So look for that next year.
Dangerous.
Lucky consumers.
Call of Duty players around the world are rejoicing right now.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Chris, do you have any ideas about what you would like the kit to look like next year? You want to just go with the classic look, or?
Yeah, I'm pretty lame on this one. I thought that they did, as far as opinions go, I thought they did an outstanding job. I liked our look. I thought, even with other red, white, and blue teams, like, because DC had that solid uniform with the sponsor or whatever,
Yep.
It differentiated us with the hoops. I just really liked that. And then, I don't know though, you get creative. I think we could get some pretty cool alternate kits. I would like to see an alternate kit. I think like an all green kind of kit or something like that. Mags, former head coach of Dartmouth,
Yep.
New England. A lot of green uniforms, I think, in the Revolution. Queens Rangers under Rogers, I think, wore green intermixed. So not a big historian guy. Fact check me on that one. Somebody's got to, but I just think that would be cool. But I'm pretty lame. I enjoyed the kits.
Yeah, I do too. Yeah,
They're really solid, and I think it's good when something is good to name it. So I don't think it's a bad pick. I think it's good props to the team who came up with this year's jerseys, and they did a great job.
I'll tell you who would be pissed about the kit sponsor though, with Chris's suggestion. It's Baxter Brewing Company. They would be upset.
They'd have to step up a little bit.
Oof, I did not even think about that. Sorry, Baxter, no disrespect, like your beers too. But you guys weren't revolutionary, sorry. Like
yeah. So moving right along here, guys, who do you want to see on the Free Jacks roster that would be a marquee big name signing for next year? Let's try to keep it somewhat realistic. So Dan Carter, I believe, is in retirement happily, and he would cost $1 million a year, so that's not going to happen. In terms of my pick, I actually put two on here. Keep in mind they're both from the same team, though. Harlequins are the champions of England, and two of their most recognizable players are former England internationals. Danny Kerr, scrum half, 34 years old, and Joe Marler, prop, 31 years old, are getting older in age. Now, this would be a perfect time to wave goodbye to Harlequins and say hello to our Jacks. I think Danny Kerr is the more realistic of the two, but would he split time with Johnny Poland? I don't think so. Doubtful. I really want Marler because immediately he would put a lot of eyes on the Free Jacks. He is huge on social media. He has his own podcast. It's very popular, the Joe Marler Show. He is such a character. He would be amazing for the Free Jacks, not just on the field, because I'm sure he can still get it done at 31 as a prop in this league, but the eyes that he would bring internationally would be unreal to MLR, just like we've seen with other popular rugby players that have come over. We'll go with Chris first. Who you got?
You stole my pick with Marler, and only because he's still such a good player.
Yep.
And maybe not internationally anymore, but for club, and just what a personality. But I had an alternate. He's fresh off his Lions series defeat, but what an incredible comeback. Alan Wynne Jones, the big man. You want a guy in the lineup. They lost the Lions series, and he still plays for Wales, has a ton of caps, but he's pretty old, and he could be one of those swan song, he's played forever.
Yep.
And he could bring a lot of experience about professionalism. And honestly, I don't believe he would mind splitting time. Don't know the man personally, but when you're that far in age with injuries and everything else like that, if he takes a match or two off and provides, and then he gets next to some of our young American players like a Jackson Thieves or something like that, I just think it would be incredible for the league. I think it would be good for developing American players and other players, anybody, it doesn't really matter. So Alan Wynne Jones would be my pick.
Perfect. That's a good one. We got Dave.
I ratcheted it down a notch on the profile And my pick was Richie Gray, former lock for Scotland. He's been plying his trade in France for a long time. The older of the Gray brothers, if you're not familiar, both Richie and Johnny Gray played lock for Scotland. Johnny still gets caps. Richie hasn't played in several years, in part because he went off to France to earn a little bit better living than he could make in Scotland. Although he is coming back to Glasgow. If you're a Richie Gray fan, going to see him back at home next season. He is in the mold of the incredibly high tackle count lock. Both of them have some of the highest tackle completion rates in the leagues that they compete in. Just guys who, if you get within 10 feet of them on the pitch, you're going down. They're never missing. Also line out jumper, and I think the right place in their career where he's getting a little bit along in age and is gonna probably start looking elsewhere. And that short season in the MLR is really attractive to players in that position. And then I did have a backup, which is Blade Thompson, who's a lock and 8-man for Scotland as well. He's a Kiwi and has played a good amount of Super Rugby. And he's just a good utility player. So again, keeping it on the down low, guys who really might, you could conceivably see.
For sure.
Tag him in the post. Maybe he'll give us a listen.
It's a good idea.
That's a good idea.
Yeah,
we should
bring him in.
I'm gonna
maybe Dougie Fife knows him.
Maybe he does. Yeah,
for sure, he does.
One of my teammates at Charles River, a man named Grant McAuslin, who's from Glasgow, played with I believe Richie, the older of the Gray brothers, like in school. They were, Scotland is only so big, and they both grew up in the area, and they were like perennial opponents. He was like, yeah, he was pretty good.
He's a giant too. I mean, obviously locks are supposed to be like, everybody's like, oh, Phil, no shit. Locks are supposed to be tall, but he's really, really tall. Like,
yeah, he is 6'10". Richie Gray is.
Jesus.
He is a tremendously tall man.
Can you imagine if we get the timing right, we're just stealing lineouts left and right, and there's no way that they're going to get him from us. You know what I'm saying? Like, he would be a game changer for sure.
No lifter, just jumps.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Okay, so the last thing we got here before Dave's report card, the end of the season report card, there was a lot of fuss online about the MLR final between LA and Atlanta due to the lack of Americans on the pitch. Does this concern you? So what I have here is somewhat, I don't think it looks great for an American league to have so few American players in the championship game, but there's an argument that these young Americans can learn from some of these more skilled foreign players to become better and better in the years to come. So down the road, there would be more Americans playing potentially in the final. I will say this, I'm not too sure that being able to trade international spots is a good idea. That is how LA, I believe, stacked their roster. During the MLR draft or prior to it, they got a couple international spots from other teams for their draft picks. So I think the league might want to look at that and say, maybe that's not exactly how we want to proceed. Maybe that should be banned. I mean, I'm all for free market capitalism, but they have to have certain rules to keep the league competitive. And I think that's probably a bad idea. And I have to say, it's probably a bad trade from the teams that did that with LA. They would probably want to take that back just to have more skilled players, internationals coming in. So that's my 2 cents on it. Dave, we'll go with you first.
Yeah, I have kind of the opposite perspective because I land in the development camp. It doesn't worry me because I think that the best thing about MLR is Americans apprenticing under really seasoned players who are going to show them what it's like to compete at the highest level. And that is not just experience of having been at a certain level, but the mindset you bring, the competitive skills that you're teaching to your team, right? And Adam Ashley Cooper and Matt Gitto, I think we're doing that. It's hard to know for sure without being in the locker room, but everything you see out of the team, it seems like they were having fun and doing it the right way. And you had guys like Christian Rodriguez, John Ryberg, and Ryan James. Some of those guys are veterans who are getting even better, like Ryberg is an MLR perennial top try scorer, right, since the inception of the league. And he's getting better because he's playing with those guys. Ryan James is a young wing coming on the scene, and he's already hitting, the highest level of performance and competition available in rugby in the United States because he's being pulled up by those guys. He was in the final, So I think that what's important is the level that they're bringing the competition up to. And I think without the shots that LA fired across the bow of the league in the first few weeks, I don't think we would have seen as good a rugby across the board. They let teams know that they had to really elevate the game if they were going to compete. And some teams weren't able to do that and weren't able to compete, but most were. And LA ended up dropping 4 games over the course of the season. They weren't unbeatable. They didn't put together a dreadnought that nobody could touch, as it kind of looked at first. Mm-hmm. People found ways to beat them, and they beat them, and they ended up winning the final. But they won, I think, that game by having a good game plan and being really composed, and not because of some glut of imported talent. I do agree with what you said about the foreign player slots being traded. I think we'll see that reined in, and I think behind closed doors, ownership will probably talk about player payment and the structures thereof. But I think overall it's been good for the league, and I think that it's not surprising they were successful in doing what they did. They had a model to bring in veterans who could get a really good game plan, a really clear game plan running from the first week, and then they did, and they ran with it.
All right, some fair points there, Chris. We've got 7 minutes left because I haven't upgraded to a pro on this bad boy yet. So go right ahead.
It's right at the 7-minute mark. I'm going to try to be done by soon. Anyways, here's what I got. If you look, I've only been playing rugby and I've only been involved in rugby since 2005, but I've paid attention, especially like to all this stuff, age grade through to USA Eagles. The best players that we've had that are Eagles, and some of the best Eagles, almost none of them stayed domestic because they did not have an outlet to play domestic professionally. I won't name drop, but there's a certain individual and he has a couple of caps and I know him, and his life took a turn, and for medical reasons, he did not pursue rugby anymore. But this individual, I remember it got pretty raw. He was like, I was torn because I literally pretty much had to sacrifice the life that I had now to go pursue a professional contract overseas in Europe. And I think that turns a lot of guys off. It's like, I'm just going to take my business job and I'm going to go ply my trade at Nyack or Old Blue or insert, club team that was high level here in the US. And so the argument to say that there's too much foreign players, I mean, listen, if there's no Americans and we're not giving them the outlet to develop, then yeah, I think it's a problem. But I think that there are enough Americans across the league, and look at our own team. There were guys that were developing and they were specifically understudies. How many guys did we see when you look at a DJ Coyle Rugby? He's like, this person was signed to the Free Jacks. We never even saw him suit up in the 22 or 23 man roster, but that's a person like a kid. I'm a Plymouth State rugby alumni, and one of our rugby alumni got picked up. He never made it onto the field, but his rugby elevated. And so that's going to be the same for everybody. Now they can stay right here at home in the United States, and they can apply it all over the country. Like, unlike the Canadians who currently only have a team on the East Coast, what about those West Coast Canadians, So I think that overall, I would like to see more Americans in the league. Who wouldn't? But I don't think it's a problem. I think it's a positive, because they're either going to play here or they're going to play there. And you're going to shut some doors if, hey, I don't want to go live in Europe. So that's all I got. I did pretty good. Just over 2 minutes.
I appreciate that. Yeah, some good points there for sure. What we might have to do, Dave, is get out of here, go back in and get the report card going. So
I think I can do it in
really. All right.
Yeah. I'll be more brief this time.
Here we go.
So I graded the team in 4 areas: attack, defense, game management, and kicking. Once again, attack broke down set piece, attacking play, counterattack, and continuity, their ability to retain the ball. This actually kind of weirdly ended up being the lowest score, all above 3, which is level with the competition. The highest were our set piece and counterattack. Attacking phase play and continuity could be better, but it all rounded out to 3.4. Defense, set piece was a 3.2. Phase play, 3.9. I think we saw really good pressure there. Disruption was 3.8. This is out of 4. So, 4 is the highest score possible. And our scramble defense, 3.7, and averaged a 3.65. Pretty good. Game management, really excellent. Toughness was a 4. Roster, 3.8. Discipline, 3.5. We brought that up a lot in the latter half of the season. Game management was a 3.8 for a 3.775 total. Fielding of our kicking was 3.7. Points, 3.9. Strategic kicks were, they were perfect. They were 4. And restart kicks were a 3.3. So 3.725 that averages to. All told, if you turn it into a letter grade by averaging it, multiplying by 25, you get 90.9, 91%. It's an A. The team did great. There are a few areas where they could improve. There's always going to be things that you can get better at. But overall, the team performed really well. I think especially around our game management, which I rated highest of all the categories. Our kicking was really good, and our defense was really good. We, in a lot of ways, are a weird team that didn't use our attack that much. So some of that is just that we like to kick it. We like to pressure on defense. We like to counterattack. We like to hit from set pieces and then get it moving and challenge all the different areas of the team's game. So that was our game plan. It was a good game plan, and our game plan score is really high.
Wow. I'm impressed, Dave. You got that done really quick. I'm really surprised. I'm not to say that, listen, I know you're a detailed guy. I'm really over the moon that you nailed that. You nailed it. So what we'll do,
it's very arbitrary, but it's fun.
Yeah, I'm sure the players will appreciate the grade that you've provided here as the overall score. What we'll do is we'll make a graphic on this and some other things too with this content to try to keep things a little bit more active on social media for the next couple of weeks. So guys, I appreciate you. Obviously we missed Ted in this, but Outriders, let's mount up, let's ride. We're going into 2022 soon. So huzzah.
Huzzah. Oh, I have one thing. It'll be fast. I have to brag for people. I forgot to do this with TK, but I won the Powassa Wakanabao cancer charity jersey from the Toronto game. Very happy, thrilled to have it. Gonna put it up in my house. It's beautiful. The pink Free Jacks logo is amazing.
Nice.
So, sorry. Wanted to make sure that got in there. I'd never remember to.
No problem. We'll do a second goodbye here. So one word. 3, 2, 1. Huzzah!
Huzzah!